every single time you lift a finger, you're commanding an incredible army of trillions of microscopic engines. So today, we're going to dive deep inside the muscle to see how that powerful molecular machinery actually works. I mean, really, have you ever just stopped and thought about that? Flexing your arm. It seems so simple, right? But what's really going on in there? That one single move is thanks to trillions of microscopic motors firing off in perfect sync. So how in the world do they pull that off? Well, to find out, we have to zoom way, way in. All right, so if we want to understand how a whole muscle contracts, we need to find its smallest, most basic moving part, the fundamental building block. So let's start our journey. First stop, the engine room. And this is it, the sarcomere. This little guy is the absolute star of the show today. It's this tiny, repeating unit, just packed with proteins, and it does all the heavy lifting. Literally, everything we're about to get into, it happens right here, inside millions and millions of these sarcomeres. Okay, so when your muscle is just chilling out in its relaxed state, the sarcomere looks kind of like this. See those thick and thin protein filaments? They're just overlapping a little bit. And pay attention to the two ends. Those are called Z-discs. Think of them like bookends for the whole structure. Right now, they're as far apart as they can get. And here is the absolute key idea, the whole basis for this sliding filament story. When you contract your muscle, these filaments, they don't actually shrink or get shorter. Nope. Instead, they just slide past each other. It's kind of like interlocking your fingers. And that sliding motion is what pulls those Z-discs, the bookends, closer together. The whole sarcomere shortens. And when millions of them do that all at once, boom, you get a muscle contraction. Okay, so if these filaments are sliding, it begs the question, who's doing the pulling? Well, it's time to meet the two key players, the proteins that make this whole thing possible. Let's meet actin and myosin. The easiest way to think about this is with a simple analogy. Actin makes up the thin filaments. That's basically the rope, or the track. Myosin, on the other hand, forms the thick filaments, and it's the motor. It has these little heads that are like tiny hands, and their job is to grab that actin rope and pull. So the big takeaway here is that myosin is the active part, the one that's actually burning energy to get the job done. All right, now we're getting to the main event, the real heart of the process. We're going to break down the exact four-step cycle that takes chemical energy and turns into pure mechanical force. This is the power stroke. And before we dive into the steps, get this. The amount of force we're talking about here is just mind-blowing on this scale. A single one of these cycles, just one myosin head doing its thing, generates about 3 to 4 piconewtons of force. Now, that sounds impossibly small, right? A piconewton? But you have to multiply that by the billions, literally billions, of these myosin heads all pulling at the exact same time. And that's where you get the incredible power to lift things, to run, to do everything you do. So let's walk through this 4-step dance. Step 1, attach. A molecule of ATP, which you know is our body's energy currency, comes along and binds to the myosin head. This is the release step. It actually causes myosin to let go of the actin rope. Step 2, reach. That ATP gets broken down, and the energy release cocks the myosin head back, kind of like pulling back the hammer on a gun. It's now in this high-energy position, ready to go. Step 3, bind. The myosin head now reaches forward and grabs onto a new spot further down the actin rope. And finally, step 4, pull. This is the power stroke. The head snaps back to its original position, and because it's attached to the actin, it pulls the whole filament forward. Then a new ATP comes along, and the whole cycle starts over. Attach, reach, bind, pull. Over and over and over again. Now, it's super important to realize this isn't one giant synchronized pull where everyone pulls at once. It's much smarter than that. It's more like a really efficient tug-of-war team. At any given moment, some of the myosin heads are pulling while others are letting go to reach for a new handhold. This constant out-of-sync action is what gives you a smooth, steady contraction. And crucially, it makes sure that actin rope never ever slips backward. Okay, so we've got this incredible engine. It's always fueled up with ATP, and it's always ready to pull. So how do we control it? I mean, what turns it on and off? Let's take a look at the absolutely brilliant control system that governs this whole process. And it's a really good question, isn't it? If myosin is always eager to grab onto actin, what's stopping it? Why aren't your muscles just constantly contracted? Well, the answer comes down to 2 more proteins that act like a perfect safety switch.
First up, let's meet tropomyosin. The easiest way to picture this one is as a blocker, or a safety cover. It's this long, stringy protein that drapes itself all along the actin filament, and its job is to physically block the binding sites, the exact spots where myosin wants to attach. As long as this blocker is in the way, nothing's going to happen. No contraction.
So, if tropomyosin is the blocker, then you need something to hold that blocker in place, right? That's where troponin comes in. Think of troponin as the lock. It's a protein complex that's attached to tropomyosin, and it basically staples it down, making sure those binding sites stay covered up when the muscle is supposed to be relaxing.
And this is where the master switch comes in. It's all about calcium. When your brain decides to move a muscle, a nerve signal triggers a flood of calcium ions into the area. And calcium, well, calcium is the key. It flows in and binds directly to the troponin lock. This binding causes troponin to change its shape. And when it does, it yanks the tropomyosin blocker right off of the binding sites. And just like that, the track is clear. The engine is on, and myosin is finally free to grab on and start its whole power stroke cycle.
You know, we've been talking a lot about ATP, that energy molecule. Its role in this cycle is just absolutely non-negotiable. And there's a really fascinating, although maybe a little grim, real-world example that perfectly shows what happens when that fuel supply just gets cut off. We're talking about rigor mortis. See, after death, the body's cells obviously stop producing ATP. So let's think back for a second to our 4-step cycle. What was step number 1? A fresh molecule of ATP had to bind to the myosin head to make it let go of the actin. So what happens if there's no new ATP? Well, the myosin heads complete their final power stroke, they pull, and then they get stuck. They can't detach. They are permanently locked onto the actin filaments. This is what causes the muscles to become rigid and stiff. It's a powerful reminder that ATP is just as crucial for letting our muscles relax as it is for making them contract.
So, as we wrap this up, just take a moment to think about it. Every time you walk, you type on a keyboard, you even blink, trillions of these microscopic motors are performing that perfect 4-step dance. It's an absolutely beautiful and efficient system, all these tiny engines working together in perfect harmony. It's just a wild reminder of the incredible complexity that's humming away inside of you right now at this very moment. So the final question is, what does this tiny cycle make possible in your life today?